Hey guys, welcome back to Live on RealiTEA with Trisha and Kylie, where we have all of the latest spoilers on everything Big Brother related. Coming to you from the feeds, we are taking everything, digesting it, and giving you everything that you need to know. So if you're wanting to stay spoiler free this season, then you'll need to catch us after the episode airs. Or check out our Instagram and Twitter where we just spoil the things that, the highlight things that you may want to catch later. So if you're here for the spoilers, then you're in the right place. We are going to be talking today about who won HOH. Did Kaysar pull it off? We're going to give you some of the things that happened yesterday. What happened with that hinky vote? We're going to be going over all of that today. So Kylie, we weren't able to air yesterday because of Hurricane Laura hitting our area, but there are some things that happened on the feeds yesterday that we were going to talk about yesterday on the 27th that we didn't get to talk about, but that we saw play out in the episode. So when it comes to the hanky vote, what was happening?
So we do see Danny talking with Cody about the idea of pinning 2 votes on Bailey and Davon. And Cody's like, no, I don't think we need to do that. Like, let's just make sure Janelle's evicted. But since Cody shot the idea down, Danny decided to take her idea to someone else, apparently. And so this is where we see her and Enzo voting to keep Janelle. And yes, Julie was shook. Like, I don't know if I have ever seen her. I don't know if I've ever seen her like lose her composure like she did yesterday, because she was like,
She could not even
I
go
don't know
into the
what's
next
happening.
vote. Yeah, she could not even go into the next vote because of it.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, can I just zoom in on her face right now?
Which we think that this is her face because of Danny and Enzo voting to keep Janelle, but it could also be a reaction to Nicole F's hair because, whoa.
Whoa.
Her
Guys,
swimsuit looked like Minnie Mouse. Now her hair looks like Minnie Mouse. Homegirl is just a mess.
which I really didn't realize. Like, I have a lot of hair. I get it thinned out regularly. I did not realize like how much hair Nicole has. Like, those are two like that. Like,
Big
this is one
buns.
of my buns. Yeah, those are huge buns. Like, homegirl, she got a lot of hair.
Yeah.
It's all them secrets in the Mean Girls. It's all them
All
secrets.
them lies that she's got to build up in her hair.
She stores them up there.
Uh,
So yeah, Julie is, I mean, we're all shook. We did not get to bring you all the spoilers yesterday and tell you that this might happen. And so when it does happen, I know all of our followers, as well as Julie, obviously doesn't keep up with us. So she didn't know. But anyway, yeah, Julie was shook. She gets that vote from Danny and she is like, what is happening? And then Nicole votes, and then Enzo votes,
yeah.
and there's 2, and Julie does not know how to take that.
Yeah, she was super surprised. We also saw on the feeds where David thought that he was going to be the swing vote, which is just playing into the delusionalness of David, because he is just completely off base on all of his thoughts on Big Brother. But it brings up an interesting point. A lot yesterday on the feeds when they come back from the HOH competition, they are talking about these hinky votes, and ultimately, if they would play more like old school Big Brother, where you vote for who you want to keep and not necessarily just voting with the house, there could have been a scenario in there where Janelle could have stayed. I mean, we get the 2 hinky votes from Danny and Enzo. If Day, Bay, and Kevin had voted to keep her, and then maybe say she does have Memphis, well, those 2 hinky votes could have thrown it into her favor. So I'm a fan of voting for who you want to stay, regardless of what anybody else thinks, because things happen. You never know.
Yeah. And I know you and I have talked about like things we would do if we were in the house, but I would definitely just vote how I want. I think a lot of these old school players have that mentality, but these new school players have the majority and are swaying them I think if Janelle and Kaysar were voters, like that's how they would vote. I don't think that they would be voting with the House, but we just don't know because they're always on the freaking block.
Yeah. So Enzo is not owning up to his hinky vote, and he's trying to keep it on the down low. So it'll be interesting to see if this week he does come out with that he was one of them. Danny is also confronted about whether she was one, and she denies it. So maybe they're going to keep the secret. We shall see.
Yeah, and Danny doesn't know that Enzo was the other vote. So he does. She doesn't know that, or I mean, or is she lying to Cody because she has a conversation with Cody that I saw where she is saying, like, Cody was like, "Who did the other one? Like, if you did that one, who did the other one?" She's like, "I don't know. I, I, I don't know." And he's like, "I thought you
Yeah.
convinced someone else." And she's like, "Who else would I have convinced? Like, I don't know who did it."
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't know because I don't think we saw this on the feeds before they went down, her conversation with Enzo to do this, or if they decided to do it separately. I don't think that that's probably the case, but there's a chance of it. So
So Enzo's taking, as of now, like Enzo is taking this to the grave. Like he
yeah.
hasn't told anybody, and like
And he
um
didn't tell anyone that he was the hinky vote the week before either.
right.
For
And so
Nicole.
he is just playing this off. Cody even asked Enzo directly and says, Who were the votes to evict Kaysar?" And Enzo said that he thinks Memphis is one.
Yeah. He's just throwing it out there, seeing where it sticks.
And then Cody tells Enzo, he's like, "Well, Danny did approach me about it and um, wanted to pin it pretty much on Day and Bay. That's why they did it, to pin Day and Bay, like really put more of a target on them." And Enzo's like, "No, it wasn't me. He
Yep.
just played it
Plays,
off."
yeah, plays it off. So we'll see what happens with it, or if it just dies down and doesn't gain any steam. Um, we will see. We will find out.
And when Christmas is trying to figure out who um, did these votes, she's having a conversation and she said that she remembered Janelle saying that she thought she had Bailey and Memphis. So,
Mhm.
there are all kinds of conspiracies going around the house. We know it was Danny and Enzo, but and I'm sure it'll get back around like Danny did it, but for now, no one knows that Enzo was the other vote.
Mhm.
Um, which leads us to Who Won HOH, and we have a lot of new viewers right now popping on. So, and I forgot to mention that we do watch the comments throughout the episode. So if you are here, first time viewer, or didn't hear at the beginning, that we do watch the comments as we go through the show. So if you have any questions, we'll be sure to look at those comments and address them as we move through our episode today. So, and at the end, we'll also hit on any comments. So drop us with some comments as we're going through the episode with your questions, thoughts on everything we're talking about. So that brings us to the HOH winner, which we know that everyone is curious about. We did see at the end of the episode, like Kaysar had already won his round. So they're like trying to get their ball down the slope into these three little holes. And we
Yeah,
saw
kind of
Kaysar.
like an adult skee ball,
Yeah, and it's in a heat
but
type
on a mountain.
fashion. Like there's groups of people, they go, like first six, second six, like whatever. Um, and we saw Kaysar finish first in his group.
Yeah, and I am thinking, okay, this is it. Like he is going to avenge Janelle's eviction, and he's going to win this HOH, and he is going to F some shit up like he said he's going to. The feeds go down forever after the episode because we have to wait for the West Coast airing, and it was running late, so it stayed down even longer than that. But when the feeds come back up, we do see that Enzo has the HOH key around his neck. So Enzo, aka that New Jersey guy, is the new HOH.
Meow, meow, meow.
Meow meow, the New Jersey guy
So
is
can we also talk about him being the New Jersey guy? So on the episode, we see, so spoiler alert, if you didn't watch the episode and you're catching up on all the spoilers, we're going to tell you what happened on the episode. Janelle is evicted and she goes out to talk to Julie as classy as possible, talks about how Julie's like, why did you know you were going home? Sorry, there's a piece of fuzz. Did you know you were going home because you did not wear like athletic clothes, like you were going to compete? And Janelle talks about how she's like, I could not walk out here in anything but a dress. And she says that, what'd she say after that?
Julie is talking to her about who she thought the 2 votes to keep her were. And she thinks Bailey. First, she says Bailey and Davon. And then I think she says Memphis and Kevin. And anyways, Julie ends up breaking down who voted for her. And she's so shocked that it's Danny and Enzo. And then
the
Julie
New Jersey
goes,
guy.
and she's like, she's trying to come up with Enzo's name, and she's like, the New Jersey guy. And it is just so incredible that all these people are so shook by her presence in the house, and she, 2 minutes out of
She could
walking
not
out of
even
the
remember their
house,
name.
has forgotten this man's name. She is that unbothered by you. So anyways, we think that this is a new appropriate title for him, so we are going to refer to him as the New Jersey guy from here on out. But Janelle is shook by the revelation that Memphis is in an alliance with these other 5 people. And she realizes that Kaysar is going to be misguided in the house because he thinks that Memphis is on their side. And so Memphis really pulled that one over. And if Memphis wasn't such a D-bag, he would actually be sitting in a really good position because he is hiding the fact that he's working with those other 5 people really well. Unfortunately, those other 5 people really don't like him. So he's not in as good of a spot as he could be.
Yeah. Yeah, and Janelle is just torn up about the fact that Kaysar has no idea. Like he's gonna go back and try to work with Memphis, and he's working with the other side, and she is just so bothered by that. Understandably so.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Kaysar, his name is flying around like I don't know what, like a plane needs to be flying over the backyard with that he's going to go on the blog. So Enzo is set on putting Kaysar up next to a pawn.
Yeah,
the pawn he's talking about is potentially David. So let's just talk about that for a second. If Kaysar goes up next to David, does Kaysar go home?
90% of the time I say yes. We obviously, Kaysar is 100 times the player that David is. But we have seen that several people in the house aren't necessarily wanting to get rid of Kaysar. He's not done anything to make anybody mad. We have seen on the feeds, and they showed it on the episode, where David is tanking people's games. So I could see a scenario where they put him up on the block and Kaysar lays low. He's not a big threat, and David manages to blow his shit up even more than he has already done and manages to get people to vote for him. And David leaves.
Yeah, I mean, and we just never know what David is going to say this week. So who knows what kind of hole he could dig himself in. So I'm really hoping that he does go up next to David.
We haven't gotten to see David spend a week on the block because he was just banished on his season. So seeing him actually go up on the block and have the stress of playing for a veto comp and whether
he did go up against Nicole. But
yeah, I forgot.
He did go up against Nicole, but he's already had a practice round, which he did terribly at. He did so I mean, y'all know he did so terrible on the block next to Nicole that he was almost went home just because of how terrible his campaigning was.
Yeah. Because he basically didn't campaign. Yeah. So no, we have seen him on the block, and it was not good. I completely forgot. It was a week ago. It's been a long week.
It's been a long week of Janelle stress.
Yeah. So I think it would be great to see that. Enzo does talk about the scenario if Kaysar comes down that he would like to try to backdoor in. So once again, we're setting up for a crappy week with the majority alliance running the house and targeting the people that we love.
Hey, I'm just glad that so far a female's name hasn't come out of Enzo's mouth. Like,
Right, which
if
is
let's preserve the females other than Nicole F. Um,
and
but
Danny, she can go too.
let's talk about Danny for a second because at the end of the Wednesday episode, which we did not get to talk about this because we didn't have a show yesterday. At the end of the Wednesday episode, Danny makes a comment like that pretty much she's taking the crown, like someone else has to take the crown.
Yeah,
And this was
she's
after the
coming
veto
for it.
happened. She's staying on the block and she's pretty much like foreshadowing that Janelle is going to go home.
Yeah.
So, we hear Danny say that. And Danny, while I'm very annoyed at her game, from a strategic perspective, she really is playing a good game.
Yeah, not necessarily a very respectable game, but if it gets her far and she wins, well, that's the money in her pocket, whether we like it or not. Um, but yeah, they really highlighted how Danny is planting seeds and leaving little nuggets throughout the house and taking things and spilling them to another group and then taking from that group and giving it to another group. So she's playing an interesting game, but
Which is not a big deal
she's
if
too
she's
close.
doing that. And I mean, when the closer we get to the end, like we're very early into the season, it's only going into week 4. So, I mean, she has time to recover, like before, she doesn't have to play this game the whole time. She can play it right now and that be that. And then eventually like have these, really solidify the side she's on. I mean,
Hmm.
it's going to be interesting to see. But I mean, right now, I would say I'm annoyed with her game from a personal level, but I do
Yeah.
think from a strategic perspective, she's playing one of the best games in the house.
Yeah,
She's
no,
not on anyone's radar. Like she isn't at all.
she's sitting in a pretty good spot. I mean, I think we have maybe heard Tyler a little bit talk about having to get Danny out, but not anything with any merit behind it right now. Obviously, eventually everybody has to go if you want to win. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And speaking of David, Memphis talks about how he does not want to be stuck in the jury house with David.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling this way, and I don't think that they really want to have David on the jury. I mean, could you imagine him being the final vote and like
No.
he's not even seen a complete season of Big Brother. So he is not going to be a reasonable jury member that you're going to be able to sway in your favor if you didn't work with him because he's going to be the definition of a bitter jury member. So they all would be smart to get David out, and hopefully we can see that this week because I'm over him. He can leave.
Yeah. Yeah, he would be in completely irrational, like, I don't even know what basis he would vote on, like, things that he made up in his head, like, we would legit have no idea where David is voting. It would get to the end, jury's there, we're all watching Big Brother, who's gonna win? And it comes down to David,
Yeah.
and he has made up scenarios in his head and probably draws the wrong key, probably shows everyone the key that he's putting in instead of hiding it like you're supposed to. Like Dr.
David's a
Will's
mess.
gonna come on and talk to these people and he's gonna be like, I don't know who you are. It's y'all. We cannot let
David
this
will be
man.
like, "How are you even running this? Like, what makes you an expert that you get to decide what kinds of questions we ask? And you are not on our season. You don't know these people. How do you have the authority to run this discussion? I
And
need
he's
to
gonna be
run it."
like, I don't even trust you, Dr. Will.
Yeah.
So yeah. For once we agree with Memphis. This guy cannot get to the end. Like, y'all, don't vote out Kaysar. Please just vote out David. Like, let's make this an easy week.
An easy week. Get rid of David. Let people that all deserve to be there for the most part play it out. And
So me and Kylie are going to try this new thing where we say the opposite of what we want to happen starting right now because every time we say what we want to happen, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So go,
Pretty
David.
tragic.
Like, I hope you don't go on the block this week.
Pretty tragic.
Oh, so with that, Kaysar has a feeling he's going to go on the block. He's an easy put on the block, so he has a feeling he's going to go on the block, and so he kind of starts campaigning and planting seeds with the good game player that he is. And unfortunately, he doesn't know that 1, Danny's the hinky vote. 2, Danny is in this big alliance. 3, Danny is a snake when it comes to the alliance with him and Janelle. So unfortunately, he goes to her for help.
And is
And
like, hey,
yeah,
maybe you can influence Enzo and keep me off of the block. And Danny's like, well, I don't really talk game with Enzo, so I don't know how much help I would be.
womp womp.
Womp womp. But
And
she
I'm
she
sure
does
Casey's
say,
like, well, who does talk game with Enzo?
right. And Danny says, well, maybe he'll want to put up 2 pawns, and maybe he'll put up Kevin and David, or if he does put you up, maybe he'll put you up against David. So that does sound like it is the best case scenario for Kaysar. We did see earlier in the week the possibility that they might decide to backdoor one of the girls who is supposed to be in the Slick Six Alliance, namely Day and Bay. And it seems like with them casting those hinky votes that they're wanting to bring that suspicion on them. So I'm surprised that he's not even throwing this idea around. He says he thinks it's too early to backdoor one of them, but I don't think it's completely off the table that we could see something like that happen, just depending on how the girls react this week and what they do and if they piss them off more or less. So
Yeah,
Enzo's a bit of a wild card.
Enzo is a wild card, and we know that this house feels incredibly threatened by duos, which is the whole reason Janelle and Kaysar went up, and they know that too. I mean, they know that they pretty much had a target on their back as soon as they walked in because of them two being glued at the hip. They are friendship goals, Jacer. And now we have Bailey and Davon, who are also a duo that is made aware. It's no secret that these two are working together and these two have each other's back. Um, the problem is that they have aligned with David, and we saw that conversation happen last night too, where David's like, I don't trust Davon, and that's where the whole Tyler thing comes out. So it isn't totally out of the cards that either both of them go up or one of them go up on this week.
Yeah. We get to see a conversation with Cody, Danny, and Nicole in the bathroom. And while they're in there talking game, and they're talking about Nicole's relationship with Ian, and Cody is saying how they need to sever that tie because he doesn't trust Ian. And Nicole's like, no, I can control him, so we do not need to vote Ian out. Like, I can tell him who to put up, I can tell him who to target, I'll tell him who we need to vote for. Like, she's saying that she is the puppet master over Ian. And I'm like, homegirl, he beat the best player to ever play Big Brother in Dan. Like, you are not anybody. You beat Paul because of a bitter jury. So you need to give Ian a little bit more credit than what you're giving him.
100%. Like, how dare her with her piggy tail buns come at our sweet little Ian saying that can control him. And I just wish that somehow this was one of those conversations that Ian was in the toilet or somewhere and heard this I want this conversation to get back to Ian so bad because I do not want him to work with her.
Right. And on a personal level, we also hear Danny telling Cody to lay off of Ian because he's doing the best he can for his situation. And personally speaking, because we both have, Trisha and I have people close to us that are autistic, like that pisses us off so, so badly. I mean, Ian is incredibly intelligent. He's obviously socially aware enough that he won a whole entire season of Big Brother, which you have not done, Danny. You haven't made
inappropriate.
Yeah, It's inappropriate. And so it's just really it's really disrespectful, honestly, that she is looking at Ian being autistic as
like a
something
disability or like
like
a handicap.
yeah, that is going to prevent him from being able to play this game at a high level. And we all know that Ian is more than capable of it. So this just also puts me even more off of Danny than I was already feeling whenever I see her make this comment.
Yeah, Danny, she's just it's rough watching her because it seems like she really puts herself on this pedestal of gameplay. And Danny, like you have never won.
Right.
So Ian beat Dan Giesling, one of the top 5 greatest players of all time,
Yeah.
after Dan's funeral. Like that was the season
Yeah.
of Dan's funeral, which is iconic in the Big Brother world, and still beat Dan.
Yeah. So I don't think you need to worry about Ian and his situation that much. Like, put a little
But please,
respect on his
please
name.
look at him like he is lower than you, and I hope that he ends up beating you.
Yes, that would be poetic justice. While these three are in there having their conversation, Bailey comes into the bathroom, and as she's leaving, she's like, "Okay, y'all can go back to your canoodling." And this rubs all three of them the wrong way. Cody is like a little teenage girl gossiping, and he is just so offended that she said that. I'm like, What are y'all doing then? That is exactly what you're doing. You are in here gossiping, talking game, and she calls you out on it. Like, why are you mad at her for recognizing what's happening?
Honestly, it's at this point where it's like I'm sure we've all seen that meme where it's like that one person that gets on our nerves, or that one person that we don't like, and it's like that bitch eating a cracker gets on my nerves. Like
Yeah.
it's really to the point where they're like looking for reasons
To
at
hate on
anyone.
Bailey.
Yes, to hate on Bailey, to hate on Davon.
Yeah.
Again, they should just title all of these episodes, all of this season, the She Man Woman Haters Club, because this whole cast has a problem with the female group other than Nicole and Danny.
Right. They have a problem with strong, confident women because that's what Davon, Bailey, and Janelle are.
Yeah. And
So,
I mean, we don't even have to go down the rabbit. There's just like, okay, so in the Twitter world, there's always these comments of, well, if this was, the genders were reversed and it was all males going home, would anyone have a problem with it? If a male was doing this, like, I mean, it's just obvious, like, that these people are picking them off, like, as a minority. Like, they've called it out in the house and it still is a problem. Like, it's not the same.
yeah.
So,
So,
speaking of Twitter, that could take us into our tweet of the day. Tweet, tweet. Which comes from our friend Caitlin Herman. Says, at Kate Coaching says, Nicole's hairstyle tonight needs to be evicted. Hey-oh!
boo, 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 boo. Shots fired. That's great.
Yep. Let me see if I can zoom in. Zoom. No. No. I can't.
No, okay.
I'm not that
Anyways,
smart.
she looks like Minnie Mouse with her two pigtails. It's really a hairstyle that shouldn't be worn on anyone over the age of 6. So we agree. Let's evict her hairstyle. Let's just evict her and bring back Janelle.
What is it going to take for Enzo to put Nicole F on the block this week?
A miracle. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So
Will Grandpa Joe, Caitlin's grandpa, fly to the Big Brother house with a message to Enzo?
that would be phenomenal, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're in for yet again another week of the same old, where we're going to see the minority side picked off. That big group is going to stay in control, execute their plans. I don't see this being a week where anything is twisted up. So,
Yeah, and let's also talk about the fact that CBS production is not helping us at all when it comes to the game of Big Brother. That last week we talked about how Janelle had this master plan that when she goes out of the house, Kaysar is going to take the torch from her, because we know that when it comes to have-nots, the going out have-nots, the exiting have-nots pass their torch to someone else and they pick them. They showed this on the episode. All right. So here's the plan. Janelle tells Kaysar, I want you to pass my being a have-not to Nicole F. And whenever you do this, you tell her that's from Janelle.
And throw some Kleenex at her and tell her to not cry about it.
Yes. And so
They
I
robbed us of
was
this.
looking forward to this on the feeds. Yes, like Kylie said, they freaking robbed us of this. Production is not helping us at all. They changed it to where not 4 people are no longer have-nots. But instead, there's only 3.
Yeah, and not only that, they also robbed all of our hopes and dreams when Janelle did come out of the house and Julie started spilling the tea to her. I was like yelling at the TV screen, no, because that obviously gets rid of our hopes of there being a battle back or some type of twist that was going to bring Janelle specifically back into the house. So, it was just a disappointing night in the Big Brother house.
Yeah. And I mean, before Janelle went out, she was talking to Kaysar about if there was a battle back, that she wanted Kaysar or whoever to send out Nicole the following week, following Janelle's exit, so that she could compete against her. Yes. And come back in her place. Yeah.
So I don't know why they could not fulfill this for us. Just a little bit of production interfering with the game. It would have been okay for this one scenario, but it didn't happen. So
yeah. So anyways,
in
the words of Paul Abram, we're pissed.
Pissed. Rest in peace, BB22.
Ed says Janelle looked great last night. I wish we had a picture of her because yes, she was stunning.
She looked beautiful.
She is so pretty. There's we can post it on our Instagram and Twitter, but there's this like collage of all of her evictions, and I mean she just gets more and more beautiful every single season, and I'm just like, I mean, how do you not love Janelle? I've seen a few Janelle haters out there and I just don't get it. So if you are a Janelle hater or you think that we have our blinders on because she's just so beautiful, hit us with a comment and let us know what you think of Janelle. Like, are we blind? Because I think she's a great game player. There wasn't anything flawed other than trusting Danny, but she had no reason not to. And speaking of Janelle, one other thing we saw in the episode last night, that also had us shook, was Nicole F's goodbye message to Janelle. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so on the feeds we see where Nicole is talking about how she, in her goodbye message, is savage and goes off on Janelle and is like, well, I've heard that you've been talking about me and I wanted to work with you, but since you were against me this whole time and you don't want to come to my wedding anyways, you're uninvited. So
yeah,
boo, bitch, you don't get to come, basically. And she's just talking it up about like, oh my gosh, I was so mean to her. That's not like me. I can't believe I said that. And then they play her goodbye message, and it is fitting with her I am the victim speech that she always gives. And it's like, I wanted to work with you, and I thought we would be friends. And since you don't want to come to my wedding, it's okay. You don't have to come. Like, what? This is not that scathing speech that you promised everybody. So we're just wondering, did she redo her goodbye message, or was she just trying to hype herself up, and this is the lame-ass thing that she was hyping herself up over?
Yeah, so hit us with a comment of what you think. I will say that she did look a little bit more fresh when she was having that conversation with Danny and Christmas on the feeds. Whereas in her goodbye message, it looked like she just freaking woke up. Like they woke her up from dead ass sleep and made her give this goodbye message. Like she was looking rough. So I don't know. I mean, y'all drop us with your theories on that. They did have a cut like where she gave the beginning, the compliment piece of it, and then the uninvited piece. So y'all drop us with your theories on that. Let us know what you think when it comes to Nicole's goodbye message.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead.
I'm a little disappointed that they didn't show Danny's, because Danny also said something to the effect of how she was coming for Janelle's crown, and that there's going to be a new queen of Big Brother, and not to worry about Kaysar because he's going to be falling right behind her. And she concluded it with "bye bitches." And so I'm really disappointed that they missed that opportunity to throw that out there, because I would have loved to have seen Janelle's reaction to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're trying to paint Janelle and Danny in this light of like good girls.
Nicole and Danny.
Sorry, Nicole and Danny in this light of good girls, which is why we're not seeing the cattiness. We don't really see the cattiness that much at all in the show. The only catty thing we've really seen is Nicole giving, Danny and passing the have not to her.
Yeah.
But then right after that, we see her give this DR, and she's like, "Oh, did I say that?" So I think, production does have a hand in how these girls' image is painted, but just know that we're going to bring you all of the tea on everything that's happening on the feeds, and we're going to give you the truth of everything that's happening and not just what's edited.
Yeah.
So that brings us to what's happening today in the Big Brother house. Today we will get the noms. There's no safety suite comp, so we should have the noms at some point today, and we'll bring you guys those tomorrow when we show. And then I know when we last had our show on Monday, we did talk about the text messages that were released, that were leaked, that talked about that Nick from BB21 was in a group text with Jack and Mickey and Holly and Kat and a bunch of those, people from there. So that was released, and I wish if I could find them, I would pop them up on the screen. I can't find them. But anyway, Nick pretty much makes a comment about shooting black things, and it's super inappropriate, and Kat calls Nick out and is like, "Why would you say that?" pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, there's been some more things. The story has developed even further. So Kat did an Instagram live. It's not saved to her page. Kat did an Instagram live where she gave some more context about what happened before these tweets, when they happened, things like that. So she tells us that these texts happened in like December-ish. So they were planning for the upcoming summer at Holly's parents' ranch. Holly and Jackson are still together at this point. And she says she did have a conversation with Nick following those text messages on the phone. And Nick pretty much tells her like he had no idea that this was how it looked. He did not mean it like that. And, whatever. And then she says like a few months later, she ended up leaving it anyway because her and Holly were no longer friends, because Holly kept slandering her, even like saying that she slept with all these guys on the show, da-da-da-da-da. And Kat pretty much just, explains to everyone that she didn't, and that even if she did, it's no one's business. Like, Holly was supposed to be her friend and was doing this to her. Anyways,
like,
and then,
while they were friends, she's saying these things.
Actively saying these things. She's saying to her that, she pretty much tells her like Kat is such a mess. And that Holly has to keep Kat together and all this stuff. And Kat's just kind of like, what? She also tells us that she's wearing this crop top and these sweat shorts that were like almost mid-thigh length anyways. And that Holly got onto her for wearing those shorts around her house because Jackson was there. First of all, it doesn't matter what you wear. Like, that's so stupid. I get annoyed with that comment anyway, but I'm not going to give you all my opinion on this. I'm just going to give you all the facts. So anyways, Holly gets mad at Kat for wearing this scandalous outfit around her house while around the apartment that her and Jackson share, while Jackson is there. So anyways, they have a falling out. They're no longer friends. This is like June, maybe. I don't, if I remember correctly, early summer. Anyway, so they're not friends anymore. And then these tweets come out, the texts come out, they're leaked. And so then when the texts are leaked, people are commenting on Holly's Instagram saying things like, WTF, like, you dated a racist. Are you not going to address these? Da da da. Holly is responding back to these people commenting this, saying things like, yeah, like, I support BLM, da 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 da, like, saying that she should have done more. She should have stood up for that more. She should have not allowed those types of comments to have been said, and that she regrets that. But then she goes on, so she could have just stopped there. But she continues and says, she says something along the lines of, all right, but you're going to take the side of the person that slept with every single guy from our cast and da da da, and is literally slut shaming Kat in her apology about the racist remarks.
Like
So
she can't just own up that she supported Jackson while he was actively a racist, and he did it on the season, he did it after the season, and you can't just own up that, hey, I should have done more and I should have been better, but she's got to cast it onto Kat and try to take the attention somewhere off of her. So boo,
yes.
boo on
So
you.
then she slut shames Kat, literally slut shames her. And yeah, that's, I mean, you can go to Holly's page on her Instagram. It's on like her recent pictures. You can see them, where she is, you can see these comments. They're still there. I looked like last night and they were still there. And these comments were made, like, she's still doing it, y'all. Like, it's still happening. There's like recent comments where people are calling Holly out. And there's even people like saying, why are you saying this stuff about Kat? And she's dragging Kat's name, saying that she's a compulsive liar and all of this stuff. Y'all, it is like
Drama.
I'm just gonna put the facts out. We're just putting the facts out there. You guys can go look at their Twitter. We'll share some of the screenshots that we have on our Instagram, in our Twitter with a scroll so you can look at everything. So on that note, be sure to follow our Twitter and Instagram at RealiTEA_TRHS, where we post all of the HOH winners, the veto winners, everything you need to know, we'll post on there. We give, of course, a lot more context on our show on the YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe and like. Drop us a comment with your thoughts on Janelle, the Holly and Kat drama, all of that. Be sure to drop us a comment and a like, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And also on Monday, we have a special guest coming to our show. Jessica from Big Brother 21 will be joining us live at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time on Monday, August 31st, to talk about all things live feeds, her thoughts on everything going on in the house. So be sure to join us for that. As we have a special guest, we want to make her feel warm as the tea that is spilling all over the place in the Big Brother house. So cheers to that, Kylie, and we will see y'all tomorrow. Bye,
Bye.
guys.